We met at a wedding, of all places. Not one of those romantic comedies where we locked eyes across the dance floor or reached for the same glass of champagne. It was actually more awkward than anything. She was the maid of honor. I was a groomsman. During the rehearsal dinner, she made a sarcastic joke about the centerpieces, and I laughed maybe a little too hard. That was the first moment we really connected. She was sharp, quick with her words, but warm in a way that caught me off guard. By the end of the weekend, I had her number. A week later, we went out for drinks. 3 months after that, we were inseparable. We dated for almost 2 years before getting married. It wasn't rushed, but it also felt inevitable. Everything with her just made sense. We moved into a modest house in the suburbs, not too far from the city, but quiet enough to sleep with the windows open. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. The kind of place where the coffee always tastes better on a Sunday morning and the dog has carved out his own spot on the couch. We built a routine that worked for us. Emma works in marketing, project management mostly, lots of campaigns and conference calls. I'm in IT, remote most days unless there's a fire to put out. We're both career-driven, but not obsessed with climbing ladders. We like our life how it is. Dinner together most nights, gym in the mornings, hikes when the weather's good. Fridays are pizza and movie nights without fail, something we started back in year 1 and never gave up. We travel when we can. Nothing extravagant, but a few road trips a year, some long weekends at a cabin in the mountains, or a city we haven't explored yet. Emma's the planner. I'm more go with the flow, but I've learned to appreciate the color-coded itineraries she puts together. They always somehow leave just enough room for spontaneity. We laugh a lot. That's something people always say when they describe a good relationship, but it's true for us. Stupid inside jokes, shared glances during dinner with friends, little things that still make me smile even after all these years. Our friends call us solid. It's a word they use a lot. And for a long time, that's how I saw us too. That's where we were. That's who we were. I think if someone had asked me a few months ago what my life looked like, I would have said quiet, but in the best way. Emma and I had carved out a rhythm that felt like second nature. We weren't flashy or dramatic. We weren't that couple posting every date night on social media or announcing our love to the world. But we were steady, comfortable, settled, in a good way. We both worked from home most days, though our offices were at opposite ends of the house. She liked it cold and bright, blinds open, iced coffee in hand, 1,000 browser tabs going at once. I kept my space warm and quiet. We'd cross paths in the kitchen around lunchtime, trade a few sarcastic comments, or share whatever nonsense Moose, our dog, had gotten into that morning. Moose, by the way, is the glue in our house. Golden Retriever, 6 years old, fully convinced he's still a puppy. He sleeps at the foot of our bed, or sometimes tries to sneak his way between us. We let him. He has his own Instagram account, managed entirely by Emma, who insists on dressing him up for Halloween and pajama Saturdays. I used to roll my eyes, but now I look forward to it. Our evenings were pretty routine. She'd cook maybe 3 or 4 nights a week. She has a thing for stir-fry and homemade sauces, while I handled the cleanup. We'd eat at the dining table, phones face down, just talking. About our day, about the next vacation we wanted to take, about whatever drama was going on in her friend's circle. Some nights, we'd pour a couple glasses of wine and watch a movie. Other nights we'd do our own thing, but always check in before bed. That's something we always did. No matter how tired or distracted we were, we ended the day together. Weekends were for errands, hikes, and the farmer's market. We didn't have kids, still deciding, if I'm being honest, but we talked about the possibility. About names we liked. About what kind of parents we'd be. Emma always said I'd be the fun one, the one who let them eat dessert before dinner. I'd laugh and say she'd be the organized one, with color-coded lunchboxes and a chore wheel. Our social life was full, but not overwhelming. A handful of close friends, the occasional dinner party, holidays with family. Emma was the more social of the two of us, always coordinating things, remembering birthdays, keeping us connected. I admired that about her. Still do. Looking back, those days feel like snapshots. Nothing big or extraordinary. Just a collection of small moments that added up to a life. A life I genuinely thought was built to last. When people say marriage is work, I used to nod politely, but honestly, for a long time, it didn't feel like that to me. Emma and I just worked. Not in a fairy tale, stars aligning kind of way, but in a practical, real, day-to-day way. We were good partners. That's how I describe us. We listened. We split the chores. We kept each other grounded when things got messy outside our little bubble. We weren't the type to do grand romantic gestures all the time, but we had our own language. The random forehead kiss when I passed her on the way to the kitchen. The way she'd leave post-it notes on my monitor with little doodles or dumb inside jokes. I kept most of them in the drawer next to my desk. I liked having that kind of history at arm's reach. Finances were something we always saw eye to eye on. Joint account for bills, separate ones for personal spending. We saved aggressively for the first few years so we could finally afford this house. Nothing fancy, just a small 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, but we both knew it was ours the minute we saw it. Emma picked out the furniture. I handled the smart home stuff. Together we turned it into something that felt like a reflection of both of us. Our bedroom had this big window that looked out over the backyard, and on weekend mornings, we'd just lie there, watching the breeze through the trees, talking about everything and nothing. I can still hear the sound of her laugh echoing in that space. We've been talking more seriously about trying for a baby, maybe sometime in the next year or two. It was one of those decisions we wanted to feel right about, not just jump into because it was the next step. Emma had started cutting back on her wine, reading parenting blogs, dropping hints about paint colors for a nursery. She didn't push, but I could tell she was getting excited. Honestly, so was I. Looking back, those were probably the happiest years of my life. No drama, no red flags, just two people who seemed to be moving in the same direction, building a future piece by piece. It wasn't flashy or wild, but it felt like something solid. If someone had asked me then, "Are you happy?" I would have said yes, without hesitation. Funny how things can change without you even noticing. It started with a conversation I never saw coming. We were in the kitchen on a Tuesday evening, plates still on the table from dinner. Emma was pouring herself a second glass of wine, leaning against the counter, and she said it so casually that I almost didn't process it at first. "Have you ever thought about an open relationship?" I blinked. "What?" She didn't look at me right away. "You know, like seeing other people, but still being together. I've been reading about it. It works for a lot of couples, especially the ones that have been together a long time." I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but she didn't smile. "Wait, you're serious?" I asked. She nodded, finally meeting my eyes. "I love you. That hasn't changed. I just think maybe it would take some of the pressure off. Let us explore without giving up what we have. We could set rules. Talk about it. It wouldn't be about replacing each other." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "No," I said, more sharply than I intended. "No, I'm not doing that. That's not us. If you want to be with someone else, then just say it. But I'm not sharing you." She rolled her eyes, exhaling like I was being dramatic. "It's not about that. You're taking it personally. I just want to have an honest conversation about evolving. We're not kids anymore. I don't care what articles you've been reading," I said. "If you want other people, we have a bigger problem." Emma didn't push after that. She just sipped her wine and walked out of the room like I had shut down something reasonable, like I was the one being closed off. And after that night, something changed. She got quieter, more distant. Her phone was suddenly always face down. She started staying later at work, going out with friends more, putting on makeup just to grab groceries. She said she was fine, just needed a little space, and that I was reading into things. But I wasn't stupid. The shift was obvious. The intimacy dropped off almost entirely. Her texts became short, polite. She stopped laughing at my jokes. Sometimes it felt like I was living with a stranger who was pretending to still be my wife. At first, I chalked it up to the fallout from that conversation. I figured maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe I'd been too harsh. Maybe things would settle. But deep down, something didn't sit right. I didn't know it yet, but that was the beginning of the end. Looking back, I think the worst part was not knowing. Not the truth itself, but the gray area before it, where everything fell off, but nothing was confirmed. It started small. Emma's moods became unpredictable. One day she'd be cheerful and chatty, almost overcompensating. The next, she'd be cold and distant, like she couldn't be bothered to pretend. I'd ask if everything was okay, and she'd brush me off. "Just tired. Work's been crazy. You're imagining things." And maybe I was. At least that's what I kept telling myself. But things kept piling up. She started going to bed later than me, saying she needed alone time to unwind. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and she wouldn't be in bed. Sometimes I'd find her sitting in the living room with her laptop, earbuds in, like I'd interrupted something. She looked surprised to see me, always with that tight little smile. Couldn't sleep. Her phone never left her side anymore. Not even for a minute. Once, she left it in the bathroom while she showered, and I heard the buzz of a message. She rushed out of the shower soaking wet to grab it. I said nothing, just watched as she checked it, turned off the screen, and placed it face down on the counter. We'd stopped being close, physically, emotionally. No more lazy weekend mornings in bed. No more affectionate touches. It was like she was living on another planet, and I was just some roommate passing through the background of her day. But when I brought it up, gently, she got defensive. Said I was making a big deal out of nothing. We're in a rut, that's all. It happens. We've been together a long time. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But I started noticing things. She started caring more about her appearance. New clothes, new perfume, makeup on random weekdays. She started hitting the gym again, even though we'd both let that slide over the past few months. Not that there's anything wrong with wanting to look good, but it felt different, intentional. She'd leave the house saying she was running errands, then come back with a single item, like she had to prove she'd been where she said she was. And yet, through all of it, there was nothing concrete. No screaming fights. No secret messages. No late-night phone calls and hushed tones. Just 1,000 little things that didn't add up, that sat heavy in my chest. I started having dreams, strange, vivid ones where I'd reach for her and she'd disappear. I'd wake up unsettled, the silence of our bedroom louder than ever. I'd watch her sleeping, wondering what was going on behind those closed eyes. Was it stress? Was it me? Or was it something else entirely? It's strange how fast something can start to feel unfamiliar. You spend years building a life with someone, memorizing the sound of their laugh, the way they stir their coffee, the rhythm of their footsteps in the hallway, and then, without warning, all of it starts to feel foreign. Like you're watching a movie you've already seen, but the scenes are slightly different. The dialogue is off. The actors look the same, but they aren't really there anymore. Emma and I had started living in parallel. We still occupied the same spaces, still ate dinner together some nights, still exchanged pleasantries, but the connection had thinned to something barely noticeable. We weren't fighting, not exactly. But we weren't talking, either. Not really. Not about anything that mattered. She was always busy, always tired, always preoccupied. Her calendar filled up with vague entries, client meeting, project review, catch up with Lauren, and every time I asked how her day went, the answers got shorter. Fine. Busy. Nothing worth mentioning. I stopped asking after a while, not because I didn't care, but because I was tired of feeling like an inconvenience. The worst part was that she still smiled. She still played the part. When we were around friends or family, she was warm, animated, affectionate even. She'd touch my arm, laugh at my jokes, tell stories about our last vacation as if nothing had changed. And for a moment, I'd almost believe it. I'd almost convince myself I was just being paranoid, that everything was still okay. But then we'd get home, and the lights would go off in her eyes again. She'd retreat to the bedroom or the couch, scrolling through her phone with that look, somewhere between distraction and detachment. I tried to bridge the distance more than once. Suggested a weekend away, a break from routine, something to help us reset. She always had a reason why it wasn't a good time. There were nights I'd lie awake next to her, listening to the quiet. I'd look at the ceiling and wonder what changed. When it changed. If it was something I did or didn't do. I found myself replaying old memories, our wedding day, the first night in our house, the time we got caught in the rain during a hike and ended up laughing like idiots in the car with the windows fogged up. I used to think about those things with a smile. Now they just made my chest ache. I told myself maybe it was just a rough patch. That people grow and change and sometimes you just need to ride out the low points. But some part of me, quiet but persistent, kept whispering that this felt different. That something deeper was slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. Or maybe, I thought, it had already slipped. By the time autumn rolled around, I started dreading the sound of the garage door. Not because Emma was coming home, but because I didn't know who I'd be getting that evening. The version of her that was chatty and sweet, like nothing had changed, or the version that barely acknowledged me, floating past me like I was part of the furniture? More and more, it was the latter. I started counting the number of days we went without touching each other. Not in any dramatic way. I didn't mark them on a calendar or anything, but in my mind, I kept track. For days. 8, 11. The kind of intimacy that once happened without a second thought now felt like asking for a favor. I'd reach for her hand, and she'd pull away, saying she was too hot, too tired, not feeling well. I stopped trying eventually. It just made both of us uncomfortable. We were still technically together, but everything about our life felt like a performance. A well-rehearsed routine with no emotion behind it. We went grocery shopping, paid the bills, folded laundry, talked about the dog, but it was all surface. When she looked at me, it felt like she wasn't really seeing me, just tolerating me, or worse, pitying me. There was a moment one night, something small, but it stuck. We were brushing our teeth side by side in the bathroom mirror. She was texting someone, trying to be subtle, her phone half hidden behind the sink. I caught a glimpse of the screen, just a name I didn't recognize and a laughing emoji. When she saw me glance over, she turned the phone away without a word. I didn't ask. I told myself it didn't mean anything. But the air between us had changed. It was like walking through fog. Thick, silent, cold. I kept thinking back to that night in the kitchen. The open relationship conversation. How easily she'd floated the idea. How quickly she'd shut down when I said no. At the time, I thought we'd moved past it. But now I wasn't so sure. Maybe I'd said no, but that didn't mean she'd stopped thinking about it. Some nights, I stayed up long after she went to bed, sitting in the living room with the TV on mute, just staring at the screen. I couldn't concentrate on anything anymore. I was walking through my days in a fog of second-guessing. Did she love me? Was she just bored? Was I imagining everything? And still, through it all, I never had a single piece of hard proof. No texts, no calls, nothing I could point to and say, here, this is what's wrong. Just 1,000 little details that didn't make sense. A feeling that something was happening just beyond my line of sight. I kept telling myself, if something was really going on, I'd know. But deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted to find out. It was a Tuesday. I remember that because I never come home early on Tuesdays. My team usually has late afternoon calls, but that day, my last meeting got canceled at the last minute. I didn't even think about texting Emma to let her know. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe pick up takeout on the way, do something nice. God knows we needed it. I walked into a quiet house. Moose didn't come bounding to the door like usual, which struck me as odd. Then I heard the muffled sound of music, something soft and rhythmic, coming from the bedroom. My first thought was that Emma had finally decided to take a day off and relax. Maybe this was a turning point. But when I got to the hallway, I realized her car wasn't in the driveway. She wasn't home. The music kept playing. Curious now, I went into the bedroom. The bed was made, nothing unusual. But her laptop was open on the desk, the screen still glowing. I walked over to close it out of habit, and then I saw it. It was a video, still paused, still open, and it took me a second to even register what I was looking at. The image was blurry at first, angled like it had been taken quickly, maybe on a phone. But there she was, Emma, sitting on a bed that wasn't ours, in lingerie I'd never seen, laughing, touching someone else. I stood there frozen. My body felt cold, like I'd stepped into a freezer. I didn't press play. I didn't need to. Her browser was still open too. Tabs I hadn't seen before. Hidden behind work windows, messages from different men, usernames I didn't recognize. One of them called her baby. Another was confirming the time they'd meet again. I scrolled, numb, not even fully processing what I was seeing. Some of the chats were just words, flirty and hollow. But others had pictures, videos, her voice. There was no code language. No attempt to hide it in metaphors. Just bold, open betrayal. All of it laid out like it was nothing. Like I would never see it. Like I didn't matter. I sat down at the edge of the bed and stared at the laptop screen. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to laugh. But mostly, I just felt empty. Hollowed out. Like someone had reached inside me and flipped a switch. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't cry. I just sat there and watched the truth rearrange everything I thought I knew. I think that was the worst part, how fast it all shifted. One moment, I was trying to figure out what was wrong. The next, I knew. And once you know, you can't unknow. I didn't move for a long time. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint, looping echo of the video I hadn't dared to unpause. My hands were cold. My chest felt like it was wrapped in wire. I sat there on the edge of our bed, no, her bed now, and looked around at all the things I used to think meant something. The framed photos, the matching lamps, the stack of books she never finished. I tried to feel anger, but at that moment, what I felt most was clarity. A kind of cold, efficient calm. Whatever this was, whatever we'd built, it was over. When I stood up, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to plead or break down. I wasn't going to call her and ask why. I wasn't interested in apologies or excuses. She had made her choice, repeatedly, deliberately, shamelessly. She just never thought I'd find out. I left her laptop open, the video still paused at that damning frame, her laughing in someone else's bed, like I never existed. Next to the laptop, I took a piece of printer paper and wrote 4 words in clean, even handwriting. I know everything. I didn't need to say more. She'd understand exactly what that meant. There would be no guessing, no wiggle room, no desperate lying to twist it into something less than what it was. I packed a bag in 15 minutes. Just essentials. Clothes. Documents. Laptop. Then I went to the safe and took out all the emergency cash, money we'd both agreed was just in case. Well, this was the case. I logged into our joint account and transferred everything into my personal one. She could figure out how to buy her groceries with the men she'd been entertaining. We had 2 cars, mine and hers. Both were technically in my name. I took both sets of keys, drove mine down the street, parked it near a friend's place, and then returned for hers. I wasn't going to destroy anything. I wasn't going to slash tires or break windows. I just took what was mine and, frankly, what she no longer deserved to have. I left the house without a single look back. No note on the door, no dramatic scene. Just silence and space. My phone lit up once on the drive, her name. I didn't answer. Then again. And again. By the time I got to the short-term rental I'd booked, there were 6 missed calls and a flood of messages. Where are you? What's going on? Can we talk? Please. I turned off my phone. Then I sat in the dark, on a couch that wasn't mine, in a room that didn't feel like anything, and I breathed. Not well. Not freely. But I breathed. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was tormented or grieving, but because my brain was alive in a way it hadn't been in months. I felt the heat of betrayal, yes, but more than that, I felt the weight falling off me. The weight of guessing, of wondering, of trying to hold up something that had already collapsed behind my back. She made her choice. And now, I'd made mine. It took a few weeks for the dust to settle internally more than anything else. Emma kept trying to reach out at first. The messages started desperate. Please just talk to me. Then turned defensive. You don't understand. Then vague and guilt-laced. We can work through this. I didn't respond to any of it. I didn't block her, either. I just ignored her. Let the silence speak. After a while, the messages slowed. Then stopped. And that was that. I stayed in the rental for a month. It was bare and a little too quiet, but it served its purpose. It gave me space. Space to think. To get used to the silence. Not the strained silence of our last few months together, but a cleaner kind, the kind that didn't carry tension or suspicion. I started sleeping again. Eating regularly. Even Moose, who'd been with me through the worst of it, seemed calmer. Dogs know. They always know. At first, I didn't feel ready to tell anyone what had happened. I kept it between me and the silence. But eventually, I opened up to a few friends, ones I trusted. They were shocked, of course. Most of them had seen us as one of those rock-solid couples. I just nodded and said, yeah, I thought so too. Then we'd change the subject. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want to be pitied. I just wanted to move forward. And slowly, I did. I started a new job. Nothing dramatic. Same field, just a different company. Different faces. A chance to not walk around with the same ghosts. I found a new place, an apartment with big windows and a view of the city skyline. It was small, but it felt right. Clean. Uncomplicated. I never planned to meet anyone new. I wasn't looking. The idea of dating felt foreign, even a little ridiculous. But life has a way of showing up when you stop expecting anything from it. Her name was Ava. I met her at a coffee shop I'd started going to every morning on my way to work. She was a regular too, always reading, always ordering the same thing. One day, the barista accidentally gave me her drink, and we laughed about it. The next day, she said good morning. A week later, we shared a table. A month after that, she asked if I wanted to walk with her after work. She didn't ask too many questions. She didn't pry. She had a calmness to her, the kind that makes you want to speak slowly and listen more. It wasn't fireworks or fate or any of that nonsense. It was something quieter. Something honest. We've been seeing each other, not seriously yet, but enough. Enough to feel like I'm not stuck in that old chapter anymore. Enough to believe that maybe I won't carry this wound forever. That maybe the betrayal won't define me. Some nights I still think about Emma. Not in a longing way, just in a quiet, removed sort of way. Like passing a house you used to live in. You recognize the shape of it, but you don't feel like it's yours anymore. And that's the truth. She's not mine anymore. She hasn't been for a long time. It's been 6 months since I left. Sometimes I think about how fast it all unraveled. One minute I was planning weekend errands and trying to fix the distance between us. The next, I was standing in our bedroom staring at the cold truth. And I still wonder, had I come home 5 minutes later, would the laptop have been closed? Would she have deleted the video? Would we have spent another evening pretending? I'm glad I didn't find out the slow way. I'm glad it was all laid bare in one brutal moment. There's a kind of mercy and clarity, even when it rips you open. People still ask me if I'm okay. And the truth is, I think I am. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not walking around with that twisted up feeling in my chest. But there's a part of me that's quieter now. Not colder, not bitter. Just more careful. I see things differently. I don't take comfort at face value. I pay closer attention to the silences, the subtle shifts, the details that don't quite fit. I haven't heard from Emma in a long time. I know from a mutual friend that she's still living in the house, that she's been keeping to herself. Whatever that means. I haven't asked for updates. I don't want them. Whatever story she's telling herself now, I'm not in it. Ava and I are still seeing each other. Slowly, deliberately. She knows I've been through something heavy. She doesn't press. She just shows up, with kindness, with patience, with an honesty that doesn't try to impress. I'm not sure where it's going, and for the first time in a long time, I'm okay with not knowing. I used to think betrayal would leave me broken. And in a way, it did, but not in the way I expected. It broke the version of me that tolerated half answers and empty reassurances. It broke the part of me that accepted surface-level peace while something underneath rotted away. What's left now is leaner, tougher, but not closed off. I still believe in love. I still believe in trust. I just know now that those things don't protect you. They're not insurance against heartbreak. They're risks. Beautiful, necessary risks. And maybe that's the hardest truth I had to learn. Being a good partner doesn't guarantee you a good outcome. Sometimes, you give your best to someone who's already decided to take more than they'll ever give back. But even then, you get to choose how the story ends. And this, me walking away, me starting again, me choosing peace over chaos, that's my ending. Or maybe it's just the beginning.